A couple of years ago, I wrote a series of um, class plans, and I called them Serenity series because the idea was to try and make them sort of fairly easy and comfortable. This is number two. They're all sort of a variation on a theme, but the idea is to try and sort of be as gentle as we can with ourselves. We're going to start on all fours. And just have the block out to the side. And we're going to have ourselves nice spread fingers, rock a little bit from side to side, just lifting the heel of the hand whilst keeping the fingers on the floor. So sort of just marauding a little bit from side to side, getting used to bearing some weight down on the wrists, elbows and shoulders. And just checking out that our knees are happy to be on a mat again. Bootlaces are down, shins are parallel. And we're going to take that up a notch and start to bring that towards cat-cow. So just drawing the chest forward slowly, rolling the shoulders blades back and the tailbone up. Belly kept in a little bit and tilting the pelvis so we can start to move the spine towards the ceiling. Dropping the head in, pressing into the fingers and the heel of the hand as evenly as we can. Inhaling forward. So one thing to note as you exhale is try to press down evenly through the hands rather than rolling into that little finger. We're trying to keep the lows through the wrists as even and equal as possible. And obviously the movement of the spine, we'll get into the nooks and crannies and opening the discs up a little bit. So if for any reason you've been static or you haven't been able to have a good stretch for a while, this is a lovely movement and it's quite accessible. Just being careful not to pull the head back too far. Now I'm going to change that a little bit and come into a barrel rolling version. So we're going sideways. So working a little more into the hips, letting the head move around freely. So it feels like the neck is moving a little bit as well. But we're getting a lot of movement laterally through the spine. And then we'll just take that a few times in the opposite direction and noticing if that feels any different or largely the same. Taking out the obvious difference of coordination, but just looking to see if there are any sticky spots. And then if there are, we know to be even more careful with those as we go through our class. We'll come back to a normal neutral position and then take the knees wide. We're going to sit onto the heels, walk the hands in so we're nice and tall, and then take the fingers out to the side edge and just rock a little bit from side to side. So loading the wrists slightly differently and a little bit deeper. So again, if you've not been able to stretch for a while, you can be surprised sometimes as how tight your forearms are. Shins are another place where you don't recognize you have stiff or tight muscles until you stretch them in certain ways. Sometimes when you have a massage and the masseuse is working down your legs and they get to your shins, it can be a little bit painful. Now, having gone from side to side, we'll come back into the steady center and then turn the fingers towards us, thumbs out. And just walk the fingers as far forward as you dare, or the hands rather, and still able to keep the heel of the hand on the floor. So we've all got different joint gaps in our bodies from person to person. So some will get a big angle, some people will get less. Restrictions in the length of tendons and ligaments obviously coming into play a little bit as well. Now I'm going to press into the shins to lift myself back up and take the weight out of the wrists, and then flip the hands over one at a time and just sit there, drawing the shoulder and elbows far back as I can. So getting that forearm wrist complex as close to 90 degrees as I can. Wait for tingling to finish in the hands, which can sometimes take a little while, and then allow yourself to move over to the other side. And again, just noticing if there's any big differences between side A and side B. And then we'll come back up onto all fours. We're going to move into melting heart. So we're going to keep the hips where they are, get hands out a little wider than the shoulders, let myself sink down. Now, some people let their head come to the ground and then they have to sort of adjust a little bit. I tend to keep my head lifted just a little bit off the floor and try and let my chest sink. Different ways of approaching this. This is the sort of the sinky, sloppy version. It doesn't sound very technical, but it's the sort of understanding that we're just trying to ease into the shoulders. We're not worried about building strength here. We're just trying to open things up a little bit. And then we'll just use the fingers to walk back in. And hopefully we sort of felt that in the mid-back area is a nice deep stretch. We're going to thread the needle to one to each side. I'm going to take the right arm up first of all and open the chest. So really not pulling the shoulder back. I'm opening the chest up to the sky. Just fold that under. And if you're able to get your shoulder easily to the floor and then press the shoulder into the ground to support yourself, you can take that left hand up to the sky and open the chest up more. You're constantly pressing down through that right arm and shoulder. If your head and shoulders don't go all that way down, then keep your hand on the floor in front of your face and use that to support your neck. It's not worth squeezing those nerve endings and discs in your neck excessively. Doesn't have any benefit to you at all other than making you feel a bit uncomfortable. Last breath in. Bring the hands back down. We're going to press away from the ground on the exhale. Take a moment just to let the spine and the muscles and everything in between relax itself. And then we'll take it to the other side. A nice long breath in. And we'll go down to the second side. So aiming for the center line with the ear and the shoulder. Again, just checking that you're able to support yourself on the shoulder and the neck if you're going to lift the hand up. Just like wrists, spines have either greater or lesser mobility and range from body to body. Some of us can access it a little easier than others. Again, we want to be careful in some of these things we do. Last breath in. Bring the hands back down. Press away from the floor. Ooh. And we're back up again. Just a momentary pause. And then I'm going to take the feet out to the side and collect my trusty block. Now I'm doing this with my feet off the end of the mat. Be sort of outside of the range some. you know, at least in the middle, if not a little more towards the front of the mat. Coming into Dandasana, have the ankles about an inch and a half apart, and then bring your big toes together. So you're starting to already get this internal thigh movement through the legs. We'll flex the toes back to us and spread them, and then take the hands out to the side as we press down through the sitting bones. Just draw the shoulders back a little bit. I just really want to feel the legs lengthening out without pressing down into the knees. And then we'll relax. I'm going to move into seated twisted posture. So I'm going to wrap the left heel out towards the right hip. Bring the right foot across. Make sure the sitting bones are on the ground. Tilt the pelvis forwards. Get a nice long spine. Take the left arm up, rotate through the body, and then bring the arms into play towards the end of that sort of rolling round process. Taking the opportunity, if it's there, to rotate a little more on the exhales. And then we'll release, and we'll work into the second side. I'm going to draw that rear shoulder blade a little bit in towards the spine, so we open the front of the chest as much as we can. It's a small movement, maybe a quarter of an inch or less, but you'll feel the muscle contract and the front of the chest stretch. Feel it in your neck a little bit as well. Relax from there as well. We'll take that to Janu Shasana, so we'll bring the feet out in front. And I'm going to start with the left heel into the groin, toes point out towards the heel of the opposite leg. You're going to put a decent bend into the front knee, press the heel into the floor a little bit, flex the toes back towards me, get plenty of space. Now, ideally, the shin that's out to the side presses down if it doesn't pack it out with a block or a cushion. So it's something you can press into. I'm going to hinge forward slowly. Bear in mind that we haven't really done anything to open out the hamstrings or the lower back muscles. So we want to come down nice and low and slow. And we're drawing the chest out and forwards rather than letting the spine round. So most of this is being felt in the legs, spine a little bit, sort of around the glutes, into the lower, just feeding into the lower back. And then the rest of the back is feeling absolutely fine. And then we use the hands to press into the floor. We'll come back up. We'll do the same to the opposite side. So just setting ourselves up first of all, a little twist in towards the body. A little pebble under there somewhere. And then again, decent bend in the knee. And folding out. So not only are we pressing into the shin out to the edge, but we're also keeping that foot flexed underneath us. Can go a little bit sleepy, but we want the leg to feel active. The muscles are energized in the leg out to the side. So they feel like they're doing possibly as much, but in a different way as the leg that's out in front. And you'll notice that I keep my hands, these early ones, on the shin bone. I'm not reaching out towards the toes or anything. Belly's drawn in lightly, chest pulling forwards. And then I'll use the hands again to come back up. Now I'm going to take the feet out. I'm going to slip forwards off of the block and just move that out to the side. And I'm going to have my feet about a hip distance apart, flex the toes back towards me, but importantly, I want the toes pointing up so the thighs are following. A decent bend into the knees, hands onto the shins. Going to lift up. I just take a seated forward fold. Now this time I am going to walk the hands out over the top of the toes and use that a little bit to give myself some purchase forwards. So just using the shoulder blades, really, they're kind of rolling down towards my tailbone a little bit to bring me forwards. Again, trying to keep my chin in a neutral position in terms of where it sits, its alignment to my chest and my body. Sometimes a little tricky to determine because you're leaning forwards, but doing your best. Again, noticing whether that feels about the same on both sides of the body, both legs and down the backs. Although we can detect any tightness more on one side than the other. We'll take a final breath here and just use our hands to let ourselves lift back up again and give the legs a little bit of a shake out. And I'm going to just draw in the left leg. I'll start with that one. Now taking my left arm underneath the sort of shin on the calf, and I'm going to open the joint out a little bit, just rocking it from side to side. Now, whilst that's happening, the long leg, toes point to the sky and flex. So I'm actually pressing out. That leg is still working. I'm trying to keep the abdominals drawn in and lift it up, so as tall as I can. I'm trying to recruit my back muscles and abdominal muscles in equal amount while sitting here, just rocking out. I'm careful that I'm not actually just spiraling around on my spine. It's the hip joint that I'm opening out. And then I'm going to relax that leg down and take it back out. Do the same for the opposite side. So think about the lengthening of the spine, pressing the sitting bones down. All that good stuff that we know, but sometimes forget. Just a little sort of 30 seconds shake out each side and then release. I'm going to bring the feet in close towards me, as close as I can, knees as low as possible. Sometimes you have to rock onto those sitting bone edges a little bit to make some space. And I'm going to take hold of the big toes with index finger, middle finger. Roll the shoulders back. And again, try and lift the spine up. I'm going to press the groins out to the side a little bit, press into the little toe side of the foot. think about stretching the spine up. You're going to feel stretch across your chest with your arms out in this way. Again, you're going to sort of feel that in your middle back, so your lats, shoulder blades, lower spine, all working to hold you upright. And then we're going to relax a little bit, not too much. We're going to slide the feet forwards until they just start to come apart. So now we've got a very much a diamond shape through the legs. We wiggle on the front bones of my sitting bones and then hinge forwards. I like to take my arms at the moment outside, but some people like to go in and under, and there's no real benefit or difference. It does look structurally different, but it's whatever feels more comfortable. Again, try and keep the shoulders out nice and broad and relaxed. Not really pulling on the arms, they're just in position to keep things tidy. And lengthening the chest forwards, just sort of wriggling away, pressing the tailbone a little bit towards the back of the mat as well. Just thinking of all those sort of muscular contractions and stretches and pulls that we can do in the body. We're trying to maximize the space. Last breath in, and then we'll lose the hands to lift back up. And we'll give the legs a little bit of a shake out. So the reason we've done all that and why we're positioned very much towards the front of the mat is so we can do boat pose. We'll bring the feet back in, and we'll take the index finger, middle finger around big toe again. We're going to walk the heels in really, really close and lean back a little bit. And again, that's where we want to get the length in the spine. I'm going to take the left leg out just by itself and try and press out through the heel and concentrate on sort of the connection with the leg, body, and arms. All as one long sequential effort working together. Driving the crown of the head, this angle out towards the ceiling. And hopefully getting a nice stretch into the hamstrings and maybe into the adductors as well. And then we'll bring that leg back in. Do the same to the opposite side. It's required quite strong fingers, it appears, to do this. Bring that foot down. We'll give it a little shake out. And then we'll come back in and do both legs together. So feet come in nice and tight. Fingers into position, lean back a little bit. Take a breath. We'll take the legs wide slowly. There we go. Just working into the right portion of your sitting bone. So the reason we move forwards is that if you collapsed in your boat pose, at least you're going to roll on your head on a mat rather than on the floor. So pressing out through the heels again. We'll see if we can take the legs wide. So gradually open them out, nice and slow. Obviously, want to keep the balance. See where we can get to. And then having gone as wide as we can, We'll slowly bring them back in. And as you do, we want to try and roll the thighs inwards a little bit. Press out through the heels. And then we'll release the feet back down to the floor. So from there, we're going to let ourselves take the feet apart, about hip distance apart, move the bum a little closer in towards the heels. We'll roll ourselves gently down, and we're going to come into bridge pose. A little bit of a breath there. Going to lengthen out. Make sure your trousers are in a good position. You haven't got the sort of big seams sitting on the base of your spine. And you want to make sure your feet are parallel and turn the heels out slightly, hands alongside. So we're going to take 5 lifts into bridge pose. We'll take a breath in, and then on the exhale, we'll draw the belly down and curl the tailbone away. Get that connection with your lower back into the floor. Take another breath in, and then press into the feet as evenly as you can. So there's a little shaky wakey from side to side through the legs as possible, and the hips lift up. So we don't have to come super high. We just want to make sure that we can feel the thighs, the hamstrings, and the glutes working. So that's pressing down evenly through the feet and pressing the knees slightly forwards. We'll slowly inhale the arms up towards the sky and all the way to the back of the mat. Inhale. And then I'm going to use the exhale to bring the hands all the way towards the front of the mat and down to the floor where they came from. I'll take a breath there. And I'm going to use the whole of the exhale to roll the spine gently with control down to the ground. And then once I arrive, I'll take a breath in. Use the exhale to draw the tummy muscles down again. Take the inhale to come up. Nice and slow. Take the next breath in, lifting the hands high and above and behind. And folding the arms over again. On that exhale. Take a breath. And rolling the spine down. Breath in. Lower back to the floor. Inhale, hips high. Next inhale, hands move up. Turning back. And turning down. 2 more. You run those yourself. And then we'll come down. I'm going to ease the feet closer in towards the body. Take the arms out nice and wide, crucifix style, so hands in line with the chest. Going to let the legs roll to my right to start with. Head to the left and the shoulders flat on the floor. I'm going to relax into that one. Bring the knees back up. Realign if necessary, and then take the legs to the opposite side. And then we'll bring the legs back up. And to draw the left knee into the body, taking the hands around the shin if possible, or the hamstring if not. And then sliding the right heel out. Got to flex the foot back, have the thigh roll in a little bit, draw the tummy muscles down and lower back into the floor. Lift that leg just a fraction off of the ground so the heel and the calf are off of the floor. Ideally as close as you can get, so you maximize the efforts for your abdominals. You keep them switched on, drawn in, pressing down, lower backs into the floor. Try and keep the back of the neck nice and long. If you notice your chin sort of crept back a little bit, you want to lengthen out. And we'll let the knee that's closest to us roll out to the side progressively over a few breaths. So effectively drawing the leg in closer, but going wider generally. And now I'm going to release the leg to the floor. Release the left leg, slide that out. Sure, I feel like I'm pretty straight down and laying on the mat, and then bring the opposite leg in. Draw that knee through. And again, flex foot, draw the tummy muscles down, lift a fraction. At this point, the knee, I'm trying to just sort of draw it towards me, sort of more towards the center line. And then I'll draw the knee out to the side and closer. That being the right leg. And keeping that little bit of internal rotation on the inner thigh and the outer hip. And then I can release. Lay down, release the shin, and I want to bring both feet back in. I'm actually going to grab my block and just place that behind the back of my head. I'm kind of coming to happy baby, and it's just a little bit easier for me to keep my spine flat to the floor if I use the block under. If you find that you don't need that because your hips, your back, your history is different to mine, and you're able to stay flat to the floor honestly, then you can stay in position without a block. Now, taking the hands onto the ankles first of all, letting the groins open out, wiggling my tailbone to the front end of the mat. And then on the exhale, I'm going to slowly lift the heels up above my knees. Now, at that point, I flex the feet. And you can either continue to hold on to the ankle, or if you think the little toe side of the foot is accessible, without rounding the spine too much. Generally, if you have to lift a lot off the floor to get to your little toe, you have rounded your spine more than you realize. So we're going to press the tailbone towards the front of the mat and relax the shoulders away from the ears. And we're actually going to try and use the muscles in the legs as well as the arms to draw the knees down. So it's not just the arms pulling against some reluctant legs. We're actually going to try and get that body-mind connection thing working and feel the legs pulling down and out. And if you don't spend a lot of time in your happy baby doing that, that's not really a cue that's given topically in this position. So it can be a bit of a novelty to go, oh, didn't realize I could do that. And that way you get a different kind of stretch sensation into those hamstrings and the hip flexors working for us. Trying to draw the legs in. That's all good. We're going to take that into half happy baby version. So I'm going to drop the left heel into the groin, and then to the floor as close to my bottom and the center line as I can. Whilst doing that, then taking the left arm out as a bit of a support out to the side, palm up. Slide the left heel out, and I'm going to do my best to lengthen through that leg and get the heel and calf as close to the ground as possible. Still trying to use that left leg to pull itself down. Taking some of the strain out of the hands, the fingers. And then we'll bring the foot back in. Come back into the full version of happy baby. A little wriggle from side to side. Press the tailbone away. And then we'll work on that right leg coming down and in. And moving in and out. Taking the arm out again to the side. And the leg nice and straight. Remember to turn the thigh in a little bit as you press out through that heel. And then think about trying to squeeze your knee out to the side and down. You're just trying to get all of the muscles, all of those nerve receptors working with each other. And then we'll release. So just come back into happy baby for a final couple of seconds. I'll take the fingers around towards the big toe. Take a breath, press the heels out to the side. So pretty much coming into the boat pose position again, but this time laying on our backs. Taking a wide leg version. And then bring the legs back in. And release the feet to the floor. We're going to take the knees together, feet out wide, arms out wide. Take a little breath in, and I'm going to let the legs scissor over towards the left side. And try and let that bottom leg sink down. So again, going from what could have been feeling like a very strong pose to something that allows you to just sort of drop in and turn the switches off. Slowly lift the knees back up and across to the opposite side. Come back up again. A little wiggle out through the hips. Now bring the feet in towards me. I'm going to come into figure 4 version. We're going to slowly extend the left leg up to the sky, turn the toes out, bend the knee off of the shin, over the thigh, drawing the knee forwards, foot flexed. Come up onto the tiptoes as I exhale, drawing that right leg in. So the left hand through the center, the right hand around the outside of the right leg, either shin or hamstring. And then I'll release from there as well. And extend that leg out. Bring that back. We'll take it to the opposite side. So just turning the toes out when you're ready. A little wriggle to open the hip out to the side. Remember to keep the foot flexed, toes to knee to look after your knee ligaments. All the tummy muscles in, you should bring that left leg in. This time the right hand's going to go through the center. Again, I want to try and actually work on getting a nice flat spine. I'm trying to do that as best I can by relaxing rather than pushing the tailbone away. And I'm going to release from there as well. Extend the legs out. I'll draw the knees in, wrap the arms around the shins. A little wriggle from side to side. And then I'm going to take an exhale, rolling out to the right side. Use the hands to come underneath, so lifting back up. I'm going to swing the feet towards the back of the mat. Move the block out of the way. So coming onto all fours. Front end of the mat. And we're going to lift ourselves into down dog. We're going to take a few lunges. So just lengthening out. Hopefully those legs feel like they've done a little bit of stretching, but you might want to still walk the feet out a few steps Get comfortable, lifting the hips up and back. And then we're going to take a static scissor. So we're going to slowly extend the left leg out towards the sky. So hopefully following the line of the body. We're going to hold that for a few breaths, keeping the hips square to the ground so the weight feels even in the shoulders of both arms, elbows, etc. We're not collapsing in. We'll come up onto the tiptoes now. We'll take a long breath in and use the exhale, draw the knee in towards the body. We'll hold the position on the exhale. Then take the breath in and slowly bring the foot through between the hands into the front of the mat. And then dropping the back knee nicely down to the floor. That knee is over the ankle. We'll sweep the hands alongside the body and we'll lift up. And I'm going to bring the hands together and interlace the index finger towards the sky. I'm going to take a side bend out towards the left side. We'll hold that for a few breaths. Now, a nice stretch down the side of the body and into that front hip flexor. Doing your best to keep your big toe and the front foot anchored into the floor, and you can press a little bit into the rear shin for stability. We'll bring ourselves back slowly on the exhale. Try to avoid sudden movements. We'll go out to the opposite side. You move quickly, you tend to lose your balance, and then you tweak your back. So, purposeful, conscious movements. We'll come back to the center. Bring your hands to the floor. We'll step back into our down dog. Couple of breaths. And then we're going to take the right leg up. And up onto the tiptoes. Exhale the knee in tight in your down dog. Take the breath in. Bring the foot through. Ease the back knee down. Float the arms alongside. Lift it up. You can hold the hands above the head as we breathe in. Get a little bit more length. And then out towards the right side. And back to the center. We'll go to the opposite side. And back up again. Hands down. Step back into our down dog. So lunges are done. We'll come forwards into a plank and ease the knees down to the floor. So lifting the chest a little bit, so cobra-esque. Untucking the toes. And then starting to bend the elbows back. We'll move into Sphinx pose, so we won't come all the way to the ground. We'll just bring the elbows underneath and out. And we'll try and spread those shoulders nice and wide. Get some muscles in. Try and relax the buttocks and the lower back. Try and lengthen the front leg muscles away. So really, again, just of that mind-body connection, trying to relax the muscles on one surface and activate in some way muscles on the opposite side. And obviously, when we move mechanically anyway, there is a sort of a stretch one side and release the opposite side in a controlled way, otherwise we wouldn't move anywhere. This is just trying to connect the body and get it to do something a little extra on top of what it naturally wants to do. Now I'm going to let ourselves come all the way down to the floor. I'm going to move back a little bit because chin would be on the ground otherwise. I'd like it to be on the mat. I'm just going to wriggle out through the legs a little bit and then take the hands out in front, at least shoulder distance apart, and then turn the palms inwards so the little finger is on the floor. I'm going to lift the chest a little bit and roll the shoulder blades back. So it feels quite comfortable in the shoulders, but I am using effort to hold myself up, a little bit of pressure through the hands. And then we're going to alternate arms into the air. We're going to inhale the right arm as high as I can. Bring that down with control. Cross over to the opposite side. Bring that back down. And then continue just sort of marching my way through. So the chest stays lifted. So those back muscles are working. I'm trying to lengthen out through the thigh muscles a little bit so that the legs don't actually lift off the ground. This is very much a unilateral movement rather than a bilateral to get the crisscrossy effect. I'm going to add to that now by taking the right arm and the left thigh away from the ground. Try not to bend the knee too much and actually press out through the toes. Cross over to the opposite side. And although you might have more movement in the legs or the arms than them being equal, we're going to try and lift them and bring them down together. So the effort feels constant through the body. Obviously, as you can't see your legs, you have to think about the contact with your thigh on the ground as it moves towards your knee. Come up for last time, right, left. And last time, left, right. And bring hands underneath the chin and just let the shoulders relax and the spine relax. We'll have a nice wriggle out from side to side. I'm going to take a half frog pose here. I'm going to bend the left leg and reach back with the left hand. So you'll get the palm onto the shoelace side of the foot and then bring the heel in towards your butt. And then press the knee away and the hip down. Draw that left shoulder back a little bit towards the center line and elbow to the sky. So that'll help press the foot in gently. And release that leg. And unsurprisingly, take it to the opposite side. So just feeding back. We try and keep the thighs parallel. Remember to press the knee away once you're safe. Your knee feels happy to do so. And press the hips into the floor a little bit. And we can release that leg as well. And give that final little shake out. Now, I'm going to roll onto our back, so I would suggest keeping your head the same end of the mat. I'm going to move purely because it's easier for me to see the clock. But if you're able to just roll onto your back, least amount of movement is better. And we'll come to Shavasana. Just feeding the feet out to the corner edges, out to the side a little bit, palms up. Some nice little wriggly movements to feel like we're lengthening the body out and sort of settling it down onto the mat. Block under the head is a matter of choice. Maybe closing the eyes and loosening the jaw. Gently begin to wriggle those fingers and toes. Breathing a little deeper, become a little more connected. Roll the wrists and the ankles just to join everything back up nicely. It feels quite sweet. And then we'll stretch out in any way that feels good to you, whatever feels natural to do. And if you haven't already, we'll slide the heels a leg at a time down the mat. So we'll just ease the knees in towards the body. They let the hands settle around the shins, begin to rock a little from side to side. Going to use that momentum on an exhalation to roll to our right with the legs. Then we'll turn the chest over, bring the hands underneath and press on the exhale to come back up very smoothly to sitting. And we're done. Just sitting in a comfortable position as we close our session. We'll bring hands in towards our heart, closing our eyes, sitting tall. Take a longer breath here. Begin to slowly exhale, letting the chin drop. Feeling the belly drawn to the spine, we'll follow that bow to the floor, sealing our practice for the morning. And on the inhale, we'll let the spine build, and the head can follow, the eyes open. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. Hope you enjoyed, and see you again on the mat soon.